The US and Russia have never exactly gotten along. Tension is always high between the two countries, but we have definitely come a long way since the past. A long way since the Vietnam War, the Olympic boycott, the space race, and the Cuban Missile Crisis. The battles between them are definitely not as extreme as they were before. The Soviet Olympic boycott. In the 1984 Summer Olympics held in LA, Russia did not send any of their athletes. 4 years prior, the US did not send their athletes to the Summer Olympics of 1980. The 1980 Olympics were held in Moscow. On May 8, 1984, the USSR announced their boycott against the Summer Olympics in LA. After their announcement, 13 more countries joined the boycott.
Okay, so the Vietnam War, or the American War as they called it in Vietnam, was a war that started on November 1st, 1955, and ended on April 30th, 1975, and the war lasted for 20 years. And it was basically a war between Northern and Southern Vietnam. Northern Vietnam was a communist government, ruled place, and basically it was backed by Russia and China and other communist allies at the time. And basically, because the government was communist and the Southern Vietnam government was anti-communist, that was what caused the conflict. And the Southern Vietnam was basically backed by the U.S. and South Korea and other anti-communist, groups. And basically, it was considered to be the Cold War era proxy war. So, the Exxon Valdez oil spill occurred on March 24th, 1989, between the area of Prince William Sounds and Alaska. And basically, a big oil tanker that's a boat that could...
Russian events. NATO. The NATO military alliance and the Russian Federation established relations in 1991. NATO stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. In the 90s, the two sides made very important agreements on cooperation, including 1994, where Russia joined the Partnership Peace Program. Russia and NATO worked together in fighting terrorism, military cooperation, and many other things. Due to the Ukraine crisis, NATO decided to suspend any practical cooperation with the Russian Federation on April 1, 2014. The Chernobyl disaster. In April 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine exploded. After the plant exploded, 5% of the radioactive reactor core was released into the atmosphere. There were only 2 deaths the night of the incident, but 28 deaths followed after due to the radiation in the air. The cause of the explosion was a flawed reactor design, being operated by inadequately trained people. The Soviets fall. The Soviet Union disbanded in 1991. When the Soviets first came together, there were 15 republics. All 3 Baltic republics left the Union and declared their independence. Soon after, 11 Soviet republics announced that they would no longer be part of the Soviet Union. After those 14 republics left, Georgia was the only left standing in the Union. On the 25th of December, 1991, the Soviet Union disbanded forever. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Gorbachev, their leader at the time, resigned from his place.
Okay, so the 9/11 attacks were a series of 4 coordinated attacks by an Islamic terrorist group on the United States on September 11th, 2001, and the attacks killed 2,996 people and injured over 6,000 other people, and caused in total about $3 trillion worth of damage, etc. Basically, 4 passenger planes were taken over, and 2 planes crashed into the Twin Towers. 1 plane crashed into the Pentagon, and another plane got taken down into a field in Pennsylvania. And basically, this caused a lot of distress in the US and caused a great deal.
The Great Depression. The Great Depression was a 10-year economic downturn taking place between 1929 and 1939. The Great Depression started after the stock market crash of October 1929. The crash quickly wiped out millions of investors in Wall Street. As customer spending and investment dropped, unemployment in the U.S. rose. By 1933, 13 to 15 million Americans were unemployed, and nearly half of the bank's countries had failed. Franklin D. Roosevelt helped ease some of the pain of the Depression, but by World War II, the American industry was kicked back onto its feet. President Hoover was the person who many Americans blamed for the Depression. With him as president, things only got worse over the years. Some people going as far as to calling the rundown towns Hoovervilles. The Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Movement took place between 1954 and 1968. After years and years of oppression, an entire community of people finally started to fight back against the Congress. Many people of color did not have full American citizen rights. Many of those people started civil rights movements, like the Montgomery bus boycott, where they boycotted a bus for an entire year. There were many leaders in this time, the most recognizable being MLK and Rosa Parks, both people making sacrifices for their people and for freedom. They both did acts of bravery. Rosa Parks not giving up her seat on the Montgomery bus, starting the boycott, and MLK delivering many inspiring speeches. They fought for very long and very hard, and they proved to be successful in the end of their endeavors.